Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is behind the steel curtain editor Dave Schofield coming at you. Yes, I sound different. Yes, I don't know how long my voice will last. I wasn't even sure if I was going to make it through the Mike Tomlin press conference today with that podcast, but I made it there. We'll see what we can do. But hey, it's Tuesday night. It's just after 9 p.m. Where else do you want to be as a Steelers fan? We are here for this. And with me, as always, is my big brother, Rich. Rich, how's it going tonight?
Still recovering.
Still recovering. The question is, are you recovering from Saturday or are you recovering from Sunday?
Well, I'm still trying to recover from Sunday because, I had to, unlike many of you who could turn the channel and go out or go elsewhere, I had to sit through that from start to finish, and it was not fun.
You didn't even miss part of it because you're in the Pittsburgh home network. That the
Correct.
rest of us, they cut away. I don't know if you realized that.
You all started talking about it in the Slack channel about it, that it had cut away, and I was like, cut away? Yep, never cut away for me.
Well,
I got to see every last agonizing second tick off that clock. Got to the end of the third quarter, and I was like, oh, man, there's still another quarter of this to get through.
I missed one play as I was loading it up on my phone. I missed Chad Henne's first fumble. But I caught Chad Henne's second fumble and everything from that point on. But yeah, it was, I just found it hilarious that they cut away from the Steelers game to they say, we're going to bring you a more competitive game. And it was the 2-minute warning after they had already won the game, sealed the game, and it was just taking a knee for 3 plays. They still deem that as being more competitive than watching the Steelers Chiefs game. Jeff Hartman talked about that on his Let's Ride on Monday as well. But I want to welcome everybody here tonight. We got to start off because, yes, it was a big rivalry for the Steelers in the 70s when he was the coach. But we have to give a shout out that the NFL community lost a legend today in the passing of Coach John Madden. For those of you young ones out there, probably all you know Madden for is for the video game. For you middle-aged people like myself, you know Madden from his commentating, and from you old schoolers out there, you know him as the losing coach of the Immaculate Reception. So long career with the NFL, been involved in many ways. Last game he ever called, what was it, Rich? Do you know?
Yeah, I do.
It was
Super Bowl 43.
Super Bowl 43. I just watched a replay of it of the Santonio Holmes catch on Twitter because they were talking about John Madden and Al Michaels making the call of that game. So that'll be, the Steelers will always be a part of that for a long time. But he really did change how a lot of people viewed the game, especially, like our blokes from down under. The whole reason they got into NFL football was because of the video game.
Yeah.
That's how they got into and interested in American football, was because of Madden. So I've never been someone who played Madden. You've had me try to do it at times back when we were in college, and it wasn't for me. Anything you want to say about John Madden, coach, commentator, video game, all of the above?
It's a little bit of all of the above. Of course, Kyle knows him because of the video game. Kyle was for Super Bowl 43, 3 years old. Hold on.
Well,
hold on. He was just shot. Kyle had just turned 3.
Yeah.
Kyle just turned 3.
Help you out because that was the first Super Bowl after my oldest child was born.
Okay.
So,
Kyle, well, no, I had to figure it out because Kyle had just been born for Super Bowl 40. So then, of course, okay. So he had just turned 3 for 43, and
just turned 3. That's right.
Yeah, had just turned 3. So Kyle does not remember John Madden calling football games, and even beyond that, even beyond just John Madden calling football games, the thing I'm sad Kyle never got to hear was John Madden with Pat Summerall.
Summerall. I knew that.
Because those two guys together, in my opinion, changed the way football games were called.
Yes.
Just you had Pat Summerall, who was still in that very old school, very Kurt Gowdy, very that play by play guy. But what changed it was Madden.
Mhm.
Okay, and then not just Madden though, but the way Summerall, being such a professional,
Mhm.
that he changed up the way he was doing things to better suit and pair up with Madden.
Yes.
And those two guys, like, I could listen to games they called. I probably will. I will go back and watch games that the two of them called just to listen to them call a football game.
Yeah, I'm going to say it, and people could say, "Oh, no." There never has been, and likely never will be, a commentary duo of better than Madden and Summerall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if that they can be beat.
Yeah, I mean that is, I mean, you would have to be absolutely amazing to even begin to be compared to them, because I couldn't tell you anyone else that even compares to them. I know people like the old school Howard Cosell. Some people did, some people don't. There's no one even in their league, in my opinion. And no disrespect to Al Michaels when he was with Madden. It's just you can't take someone else paired with Madden and say they're close. You've got to take number one Madden with his number one pairing. So rest in peace, John Madden. You were someone that Steeler fans could, he couldn't stand the Steelers because of that big rivalry in the 70s, and you don't blame him. But I still know that they got the best of them.
Couldn't stand him, but he did respect him.
Exactly. So just I had to bring it there. That's big NFL news. I mean, that happened. That the news of that was broken this evening. So on Tuesday. So for all I know, there could have even been people here in the live chat that hadn't even heard the news yet. I'm sure most probably did. But do we have to talk about last week's game with Steelers? Hey, let's hit some news first. Okay. Let's hit the Mike Tomlin press conference. Okay. I felt that the press conference had a lot less to it than normal, but Mike Tomlin, he talked about injuries. He mentioned guys by names, but didn't talk about their injuries. What he said was, with an extra day's prep for a Monday night game, usually they throw in an extra day at the end of the week. They keep their regular routine of practicing on Wednesday and throw it in later. They're not. They're throwing in the extra day basically tomorrow, that they're not going to come back and take the field until Thursday to try to give some of these guys that have missed with injury, some of the guys on the COVID list, all these players, a chance to come back. He specifically mentioned Pat Freiermuth and Kevin Dotson first. I think you're going to see both those players this week. He also mentioned who else did he mention? I'm trying to remember. They were the important ones. He mentioned two others. I know he mentioned Devin Bush specifically from COVID. He did not mention Chris Wormley, which I thought was interesting. When it came to Presley Harvin, there's a lot of things going on with arrangements and whatnot and services with the passing of his father on Christmas Day. Doesn't seem like they are pressuring him to come back. And Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, although a lot of times you would probably be saying that to me and something like this instead. I don't think they changed the rule. If you sign a player off of another team's practice squad, that you have to keep them for 3 weeks. I don't think it even matters if that's it. I know it's definitely a rule if you're playing that team anytime soon, but I think it's just a rule in general that I want
as well
to look up, which means you're going to have to pay Corliss Waitman. Even if you release him, you got to pay him a salary. And the right thing to do is you just keep him for the last 3 games. So the Steelers are going to have 2 punters. Is how it's going to be. So there's really no reason, especially with everything going on with Big Press. My heart goes out to him. It's kind of stinky that something like that happens, even though he's known about it for a while, that they knew his father was at the end. But then to be on Christmas on top of it is just kind of got to. I just got to say my heart goes out for him. I'm okay, not even because of performance or anything. If he doesn't kick anymore in the regular season, I can totally.
Right.
I'm not going to criticize him for that one bit. So, and it's not even about. I mean, even if he was having an All-Pro year, just because of how things are going, because they had someone else that he didn't kill him, but I mean, he only had to punt twice. So we'll see how that has to play out. So other than that, I mean, a lot of players going on the COVID list. Record number yesterday. It's funny, they talked about 96 positives and everything on Monday and how it was the most they've had by far. And I'm like, that's true. But if you think about it, that's only on average 3 per team, and that's including roster and practice squad. So that's out of 69 players per team. Really, it was 3. So while it's not good,
no, that number you gave though.
They make it
the 96
like
positives.
like
is that only players?
Out. What's that?
The 96 positive, is that players only, or is that include all the
I
training staff and everybody else that gets tested?
It might have been. I thought that was players, but that also included practice squad. I know that for sure. Yeah. But yeah, so it's not like, oh my goodness, every team only has half their people. It's not to that point yet. They changed their guidelines. They announced that this afternoon to go along with how the CDC changed everything. So vaccinated or unvaccinated, if a player tests positive on Monday, it is possible they could still play on Sunday based on how they've changed things. I know teams fans of like the Saints that had to do what they did Monday night, or other teams that were decimated with COVID at times, say, well, that's not fair. Everyone else should have to do this too. If you set the standard that you're following the CDC guidelines, that when they change the guidelines, you got to change yours. So yeah. So I don't know. We need to go into that too much. No, anything you want to say about that?
No.
Yeah. Good. So bottom line is, it's now or never for the Steelers. So we're going to focus more on that as we go. Is there anything that you want to say from this past week? Because we usually spend most of the show talking about the past game, but my goodness, I don't want to even think about
it. Yeah, a couple things. And it's not so much about the game, but I do, sorry, got to hit some folks out there, because I got into reading lots of comments on stories in the past couple days. And I think there must have been an awful lot of people that weren't under the same guidelines that I was for the game, and they turned away from the game a good bit and didn't watch it all. Okay. I got tired because I saw more than one comment by more than one person talking about, how the defense didn't, Kansas City never punted the ball. Mm-hmm. I saw that comment out there a couple times, which is totally wrong. Kansas City actually punted the ball as many times as the Steelers.
The Steelers did.
Now, the problem was, though, the other times they were scoring and the Steelers were turning it over.
Yeah.
But, yes, they actually punted the same amount of time. The other one I couldn't understand that I was seeing people complain about was, I saw a lot of complaining going on about Alex Highsmith. And honestly, I was surprised, because I thought he played and has been playing very good football. Okay. He's played pretty solid football all year. Okay. Mm-hmm. Here's what I think has happened to people in their opinion of Alex Highsmith.
Okay.
And his play this year. The folks that I've seen gotten very down and negative on Alex Highsmith and saying that he was I was seeing multiple people talking about how it was another wasted draft pick. Okay. Yes. Multiple people I was seeing this from. And that really bothered me, because honestly, I think those people that have a problem with Alex Highsmith and the way he played football this year
don't understand football.
Either A, don't understand football, or B, expect everyone that lines up to play outside linebacker for the Steelers to be TJ Watt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And let me tell folks, if TJ Watts were so easy to come by,
everyone would have one.
Everybody would have one, and it wouldn't be so special.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Alex Highsmith, because I do the articles, whether I agree with everything or not. I always like to do it just to dissect it.
I just read that article a little bit ago.
With the PFF grades. Highsmith was in the top 5. There was only 2 starters in the top 5 defensive grades for the Steelers. It was Highsmith was the 5th grade, and Minka was tied with UG3 for the 3rd best grade. The other guys were Witherspoon, Carlos Davis, and I said UG3. Those were the top 5 grades. Joe Schobert was actually 6th. He didn't have a terrible game. I tell you one thing, that's really even when
funny
when Devin,
this week with those scores reflected what I was seeing in the game.
See, and that's what I always look at these scores. I want to see if they back up what I thought I saw. And if they don't, then I want to go back and look. And then I'll say, oh, did they see that right? Or, oh, no, they're just crazy. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But, there were more Steelers below 50 than I've ever seen before on defense. I'm talking about defense with grades below 50. And in case you're wondering, PFF starts, their standard grade is 60.0. If you play one snap and don't really do anything, you have a grade of 60.0. That's what Zach Banner's been getting all season when he plays 1 or 2 snaps. That's what Minkah Fitzpatrick gets as a grade on offense whenever he's in for kneel downs. That's where they start. So if you're above 60, that means you've done something more to get noticed. And people are like, oh, well, no one gets an A. A good PFF grade is 75 and above. I would say very good. When you have someone that's hit 90s, that's out of this world playing. That's really what it is. That's what you got from Cam Hayward early in the season. That's what you get at times from TJ Watt, who had a 50.6 this week. And I think we can all agree, watching the eye test, TJ Watt was not ready, was not healthy, was not himself in this game. And the Steelers basically aren't. Tomlin didn't mention him again today because if not, they're going to get in big trouble. They didn't want anyone knowing that, hey, all you got to do is pop him in the ribs and he's going to be in trouble. Yeah. So they didn't want the story getting out there. So they didn't put him on the injury report all week. And then the story breaks, and now they're probably going to be in trouble with that. But he obviously wasn't himself. He didn't play as many snaps as normal. And I don't know if you noticed this. I brought this up. I felt like when the ball was running away from him, he was just kind of trailing the play. And normally you see TJ Watt flying to the ball, even when it's away from him, to get in on stuff no matter what. That was not happening because he needed to protect himself.
That and honestly, what I was noticing was he didn't have all his moves. Yeah. He couldn't do all the normal TJ moves because I could tell some of them bothered him.
Yeah.
So, I want to get that before it gets away. Yes, Super chat from Steel Dog 88, $5 in the chip jar. Thank you very much, Steel Dog. He says, I think people are down on Highsmith because they expected to get the output Dupree had last year. Another good point. Another very good point. Maybe that's it as well. It's like they expected to have, Bud Dupree after however many years out of Alex Highsmith in year 2.
Bud Dupree in year 6.
Yeah.
And not only that, I still think a lot of times the expectations for Dupree was a lot because guess what? Bud Dupree wasn't asked to sack the quarterback nearly as much as what TJ Watt was. Just because they're both outside linebackers doesn't mean they have the same responsibility. Because someone's got to keep them in the pocket. Someone's got to help set the edge for the run and all these things. And if you're going to allow TJ Watt, who is fantastic at getting to the quarterback, if you're just going to say, oh, well, the other guy on the other side, I want you to do the exact same thing, then you're going to have holes in your defense. You can't ask both outside linebackers to do the same thing or else there's going to be problems. So, and that's the thing. When was Alex Highsmith wasn't there a game in there where TJ didn't play where Highsmith had 2 sacks or something like that, or a sack and a half? I can't remember. I should have looked it up, but I didn't know we were going to talk about him tonight.
Sorry.
That's because he was taking on more of the TJ Watt role. And the same thing happens with Cam Hayward. It's happened all season with Cam Hayward. You're like, oh, Hayward, especially early on, all the disruption he was doing. But when Stephon Tuitt's there, Stephon Tuitt does those things, and Cam Hayward has a different role.
Right. Yeah.
So basically all season, Hayward's been in the Tuitt role, and no one's been in the Cam Hayward role, and that's why everyone's running all over the Steelers lately. And honestly, in my opinion, it's not even that. It's because if one person's doing one thing, so you could take Cam Hayward and say, go back to doing the Cam Hayward role, then you've got no one doing the Stephon Tuitt role very well, and then you're really in trouble with that aspect too. So people just think because they're defensive tackles and they're both on the field at the same time that they're both asked to do the same thing, and they're not. You have different responsibilities, and the same goes with outside linebackers. That's why sometimes you'll see, TJ in coverage or Highsmith in coverage or TJ lined up over the center or, things like that, because you're not going to ask them to do the same things. So just because Highsmith might not have the sack numbers or the quarterback hit numbers, and I try to tell Jeff Hartman this a lot. I know early in the season, he didn't like that Highsmith didn't have the stats. I'm like, but they're not asking him to get the stats. They're asking him to hold down the fort so TJ Watt can go get those stats. And TJ Watt has gotten those stats.
That's correct.
That's the thing. You don't have to have 2 guys each with 10 sacks if one guy has 3 and the other has 17, and
correct. The numbers,
that's the point, because
still the same.
Yeah, because you're not asking them to do the same thing. So sorry, I didn't realize this was something to bring up, but I'm glad you brought it up, because that's just one of those things that sometimes get
and when I was seeing that after the game from folks, I was like, they weren't watching the same game I was then, because Alex Highsmith had a sack in the game the other day. Yeah. And although the second sack that the Steelers had went to Cameron Hayward, it's because
Highsmith forced him up into the pocket.
Highsmith forced him right into, he was avoiding Highsmith and forced him right into Cam.
Yeah.
It's like, don't tell me that guy can't wreak havoc out there in the TJ Watt role when he was basically doing that in that game when TJ Watt was not in the game. So,
yeah.
Just do I want to talk a whole lot about that game? No, because there's not really a ton to talk about. The Steelers,
And as Coach Tomlin said today, it was, if you're going to go in there and beat that team, you can't go in there and turn the ball over 3 times and not get any takeaways.
Yep.
I mean, look, it took a +4 turnover margin at home to beat the Titans. You weren't going to go into Kansas City and win a stinking game at -3. Yeah. You're just not going to do it.
Nope.
And I saw some other people in the live chat say something similar to this. Was there at any point in the season? Well, that's not true. There was a point in the season, because I know it is for me. But either before the season or leading up to this game, did you ever have the Steelers winning this game?
No.
Mm-mm. I mean, there was a point in the season when it looked like Kansas City was struggling. I'm like, oh, that might not be a bad a game as what everyone's making it out to be.
Five games,
then they got everything
5 games
out.
in, you thought maybe we do have a chance to beat Kansas City. But if you look over the last 3 or 4, you'd say no chance.
Yeah,
you were back to where you thought when the schedule came out.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And honestly, even going into this game, I picked them not to win this game. I mean, it's just what it's what I did. But I picked them to cover. I thought that they would give Kansas City, they would make enough noise with Kansas City. They wouldn't pull a Minnesota where they were down so much, and they were then going to have to fight their way back and make it close in that way. I thought that they would, not let it ever get too far out of hand. I thought it was going to be more like a Buffalo or a Cleveland, where the Steelers, who were trailing at halftime in both those games, but they were within, I think, 10 points in both of them. And Tennessee, forgot that one too. All 3 of those games, they were trailing by like 10 points at that game. No, I mean, Cleveland, it was tied. Sorry. So, but I think you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're getting at.
Yeah. That they were in it and right there. So This was not the case here. And I really felt for him because although Jeff likes to say I can't stand him, Deontay Johnson, because that was about the most untimely play that the Steelers could have.
Yep.
Because the Steelers, they were down 23-0 at halftime, and KC gets the ball. And what did they do? They held him to a 3-and-out. They held them to a 3-and-out.
Was it a 3-and-out? I thought it was a first down.
Nope, it was a 3-and-out.
You're right. It was a 3-and-out.
I went back and double checked it. I'm like, they held them to 3-and-out. They got the ball. Najee had a nice run on first down. And on second down, they throw it out to DJ, who's got the first down and going for more, and drops it. It was not drop the pass, just drop the ball. If the Steelers could have done something on that drive,
did you see why he dropped the ball?
He was switching hands.
Not switching hands. He caught the ball, had it in 2, and went to 1. And he didn't cradle it or anything like that. He went to palming it in one hand. That's what drove me nuts about that play. That is not ball security. And I know that Coach Tomlin was sure to point that out.
Yeah.
In film review, that is not ball security.
Yeah. And exactly. And my point with all this was, if you were going to come out and make noise in the second half and still probably not even have a chance to win the game, everything had to go your way in the second half. And it started off that way because you did something you hadn't done the whole game. You got the 3-and-out.
Yep.
Okay. So then you're talking about 23 points to come back. Now, yeah, probably had a pretty good idea that Kansas City was going to score again at some point. So, but you really needed to score on every possession, maybe get a takeaway or 2 to give yourself even a remote chance. And when you had the second turnover right after that started to happen, I mean,
yeah,
that was it. Then the fact that they turned it into 7. I mean, if the game wasn't, really, you felt like the game was over in the second quarter, but they had a chance to at least try to go somewhat respectable there. And that turn, and you saw that glimmer for just a couple of minutes and then it was gone. But you can't put yourself in that situation where one play like that ruins the day. What ruined the day was the first 30 minutes that you had to be completely perfect and have luck on your side throughout the rest of the game. And yeah, but I just, that play was like, if it wasn't for that play, you would have been interested to see how the game would have played out. I still don't think they would have won.
No,
but I think it might have been a little bit more. They might not have had to go to flip over to Las Vegas, taking a knee 3 times, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So,
well, no, I don't, because I didn't see that. So, all right, let's move. Yeah. Let's move along.
Yeah, we'll move along. Because really what we're talking about tonight is it's now or never. It's now or never. It is now do or die, as Jeff Hartman always likes to point out with Dave Schofield. We ask him if it's a do or die game, and as long as he can explain the math and the numbers to us, that it's not exactly a do or die game, but in essence it is. This one really is, because if you don't, let's just say this. Jeff asked me this. I think he wrote the article today. I can't remember, but he's like, what's the scenario? I'm like, well, I've got the scenario for the AFC North memorized. He's like, oh, you want to tell me what it is? I'm like, sure. So I actually sent it to him. So for all I know, he copied and pasted it for his article. I'm not sure. But bottom line is, all the Cincinnati Bengals have to do is win another game, and they're the AFC North champions.
Correct.
But they're not. I don't know that they're going to be favored in either game. I know they're not favored at home this weekend because they play Kansas City.
Right.
And I don't know that they're going to be favored in Cleveland. I don't know.
If so,
to me, that's a toss-up.
They might get a favor. They could get favored by a point.
By a little, but I don't think it's going to be that they're heavy favorites.
No. So
saying that the Bengals were to lose both of their games, it's not crazy. It's not crazy. But in order for any other team other than the Bengals to win the AFC North, the Bengals have to lose them both. Because When it comes to Baltimore, they're back one game, but they lost both of them to the Bengals.
Correct.
So they have to be up a game. And in order to be up a game, the Bengals have to lose 2, Baltimore has to win 2. That's what has to happen there. If that happens, the Steelers don't have to worry about anything because the Ravens would have to beat the Steelers. So that's what that is. What's interesting is the Ravens game this weekend really doesn't affect the Steelers. The reason it doesn't really affect the Steelers is because the Steelers are going to have to beat the Ravens no matter what.
Yeah.
So and so if they both win and then the Steelers beat the Ravens, the Steelers are ahead of them because they're only a half game back. Or are they a half game back or a game? I can't remember. I have it right here. Bottom line is, yeah, I do have it right here. That's why they're because they're a half game back of Baltimore.
Game and a half of Cincinnati.
Yeah, I was thinking about what the scenario was before those two teams played. So that's where that lies. Then you've got Cleveland. Bottom line is, if the Bengals lose to the Chiefs, which I'm going to pick them to lose to the Chiefs, just that's what I'm going to say. Baltimore's only alive if they can beat the Rams at home. If they lose to the Rams, they're out of it. Then it comes down to the Bengals and the winner of the Steelers-Browns game, fighting for the spot in the North. If it's the Steelers, then they need the Browns to beat the Bengals, and they have to beat the Ravens. If it's the Browns, then it all comes down to the two of them playing each other the next weekend, the Browns and the Bengals. That would be for the North. So really, you're going to you'll know if Baltimore is still alive by the time the Steelers take the field against Cleveland on Monday night. You'll know if there's still a chance on, and if the Bengals don't upset the Chiefs. So you'll know a little bit more when the Steelers go to kick off, but that's what has to happen. And even when looking at the wild card, I would look at the wild card, like, is there any way the Steelers could lose this game and still make it in the wild card? And I started to go through all the scenarios, and there would have to be like 5 different teams go 0-2 over the last 2 weeks if the Steelers went 1-1. The Steelers would need the Bengals, the Bengals would have to go into, it would have to be the Browns winning the North would be the only way that happened. And then even when I did all that, then I realized that the Chargers and the Raiders play each other.
Mm-hmm.
So one of them has to win that game. And then if that happens, then that wouldn't do anything. So then you're like, well, what if they tie? Then they'd be tied record-wise with the Steelers, but the Steelers lost to both of those two teams. So you would actually have to have another team that would also be at 8-1 to come in and do a tiebreaker to force another tiebreaker, and it'd have to be the right team, and I still don't even know if it would work. Ooh, it makes your head explode. So guess what? If the Steelers lose against the Browns, they're done. That's the easiest way to say it. If they lose against the Browns, they're done. Okay? So that is why it's
mathematically maybe or maybe not, but it doesn't really matter. If they lose, they're done.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would say they're done now.
Yeah.
But
and you know why?
They're technically not done now.
They're not done because they haven't played yet. Now, the people that say that they are done, I'm not saying you're wrong. I mean, you're technically incorrect. But I understand where you're coming from because you're basing it off of how the Steelers are playing. Right? Wow. They're saying they're done because they're not playing well enough to beat both of these last two teams who, honestly, they ain't looking that great either.
That's true. Somebody put it up there either. At least the Steelers are playing 2 other teams that are dumpster fires right now. Yeah,
that's the thing. I mean,
who's the less dumpster fire in these next 2 games?
Exactly. And I still don't know what to expect out of Baltimore, but guess what? Don't have to worry about Baltimore right now. Worry about we'll be talking about that next week when we're on here. That's when we worry about that one. So right now, it's all about the Browns. And between you and me, if the Browns decide that we are just going to hand the ball off to Nick Chubb every single friggin' play, because that's what we need to do to win, they would show that they're smart enough to know what they need to do to win.
Oh, they'll
They
do
need
that.
to
They'll
have,
do that in the first half and get a 7-point lead, and then they'll let Baker Mayfield sucks chuck it
yeah,
all over the yard and throw 3 interceptions in the second half.
that's
That
exactly
would
my
be
point.
that would be the perfect Brown type of Browns game, because that's the Browns being the Browns.
The question is their coach as smart as Bill Belichick? And you know why I'm saying Bill Belichick? I'm going back to earlier in the season when the New England Patriots defeated the Buffalo Bills.
Mm-hmm.
How many times did they throw the ball in that game?
3.
3. Are they smart enough to say, we don't need to throw the ball more than 3 times to win this game if we can just run and they can't stop it? Honestly,
Yep.
I would hand the ball off every play until you are losing. Honestly, even if you don't go all the way down and score in the first drive, what are the chances are the Steelers are going to score? They've shown that they can't put up points in the first half at all. I would have 0 pass attempts in the first half because it's not like you're going to get behind a bunch, right?
True.
Make them stop. That's just me. That's just me. Now, I don't see an NFL coach doing that because they think, oh, well, we'll catch him off guard. Yeah, you'll catch him off guard and have Baker Mayfield throw another interception, which is basically why they are 7-8 right now. So
I don't like seeing Baker Mayfield throw all those interceptions their last game on there the other day.
because you're afraid he's going to realize he can't do that?
No,
Or they'll bench him?
I'm afraid they're not going to sign him to that big quarterback contract that I'm hoping Cleveland signs him to.
Did they? Or did he get franchised? Or did
I
they
don't
sign
know.
it? I can't remember. I can't even remember what happened with him.
Just give him a great big. I just want to make sure Baker Mayfield is set to be there as the quarterback for a while, because he's not. As Brian Anthony Davis says, Baker Mayfield sucks.
Yeah, I mean that's what. Yeah, let's see. He's still because he didn't sign it in the offseason because he's got the 5th-year option coming up next year is what it ultimately came to, is what they talked about it. I couldn't remember if they got it done because frankly it was the time of year I didn't care. So Browns fans are starting to realize this. It's bad. I actually tweeted it out and said it was a picture of The Rock saying, finally, that Browns fans are realizing that it's their quarterback that's the problem.
I know, and I don't want them to realize that. I want them to hurry up and, anoint him.
No, think that he's not the problem for at least one more week.
No, I want them to think he's not the problem and sign him to a great big old extension, and then they can figure it out.
Yeah.
Come on. That's my strategy. That'll keep the Browns as the Browns for years and years and years to come.
Yeah. And the thing is, the last time the Pittsburgh Steelers held a team under 100 rushing yards, it was against the Browns.
Yep.
It was. Now, I'm thinking one of their guards was out. I mean, they've got 2 Pro Bowl guards. And everything, and part of me is just like, what would, and I think it's funny because as much as people want to talk about how, they want to fire all the coaches and the Steelers coaches are terrible and blah, blah, blah. And I've said it before. I went on a little bit off on the preview that people that follow the NFL and not particularly the Steelers think that people that say that are fools, because they look at it from the outside and they say this roster is not good and the only thing keeping you afloat is the coaches. But the thing that I think of is imagine Matt Canada calling plays with Ben Roethlisberger, but behind that offensive line, of the Browns.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Take some of those things and swap them out. But for those people that are really down on the Steelers offensive line, you know what? I agree with you. And I said it before, who was supposed to be the starters this year? At the beginning of June, it was supposed to go. That's why they paid Zach Banner and it was David DeCastro, and maybe Kendrick Green will be good enough than the other guys that we have, and we can start him. No, it's not that he wasn't good. Not that he was good enough. He was not as bad as is what it was. There was no reason to not. And then it was Kevin Dotson. And then Chooks. And then what ends up happening, I still say the David DeCastro thing threw this entire team off. Salary cap, line, plans, everything that they had got thrown out when DeCastro couldn't play. That's just, they would have spent more than, they went out and got Trey Turner. Trey Turner was all that was left. They didn't really have any options in June. They might have done something in March if it wasn't for DeCastro, or they would have used that money to keep someone like a Matt Filer or invested it more on the defense or something like that. And now everyone's like, well, they still have cap money. Why'd they even bother? Well, the Steelers did those void years knowing that if they didn't spend that money, then that money this year is going for the void years that they have coming in next year or whatever. But, in case something, maybe the right thing never came available for them to use that money and they were hoping it would. But I still think that the DeCastro thing is what really hurt this offensive line and in turn the offense big time. But if you looked at that offensive line that I listed, I still don't think that offensive line is very good.
No,
then look what they had to do in place of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was very optimistic. The DeCastro thing, I was concerned, but I'm like, oh, they'll overcome. And honestly, maybe 7-7-1 at this point of the season is overcoming, if you think about it. Because when you look at how things are going, you're like, how did it even get to where they're still in talk of being in contention? So, I don't know, but any thoughts? I brought up the whole DeCastro thing. Any more? Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, just, we knew the offensive line was a big question mark coming in. That just made it even a bigger question mark.
Yeah. Yeah. So, because, it's kind of the whole notion of you don't want everyone going out at the same time. And I know last year, right as the season ended, Jeff Hartman was all about the Steelers drafting a quarterback. He turned on that right away. I said, there is no use to draft a quarterback until you fix the offensive line. That's going to get worse with no Marquise Pouncey and things like that. And now here they are in the same boat that they still need to fix the offensive line. But what I'm going to say is that there's hope. Think of some of these offensive lines that were not good at the end of last year. How about Kansas City?
Yeah.
They signed people, they drafted people. Some people still argue that Kansas City drafted the guy the Steelers should have, but I digress. And it is what it is. So they turned it around. How about the Bengals? That offensive line was terrible.
True.
They got Joe Burrow killed. They got him killed. And that offensive line is not the liability that it was before. So you can turn it around if you decide that you're going to go all in to turn it around. And the Bengals didn't even invest their top pick in it, which I still thought. When they drafted Jamar Chase, I thought the Bengals just bungled this up and they're done because Joe Burrow is going to get killed again. And my goodness, they still managed to pull together a pretty decent offensive line. So it's interesting. So,
yep.
But if you've noticed, we've been talking about this offensive line a lot since Kevin Dotson went down with injury.
True.
We were talking about how this offensive line was getting better.
Yes.
Until Kevin Dotson went down due to injury.
Yep.
I don't know that he can save it, but maybe it can get going in the right direction.
Well, I can tell you who's going to save the Steelers on Monday night.
Okay.
Me. I'm going to the game.
You're being at the game. You will be there. You'll be in your seats. Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
I'll be in my seats.
Yeah.
And cheering them on, or if need be, letting out a few boos here and there, depending on what goes on with the game.
Yeah. Bottom line is this team. It's funny. Coach Tomlin said today that he said, yeah, sorry if my dog's barking in the background. That's my daughter's responsibility. So she's going to be in the doghouse tonight.
Gotta get moving. Got it.
Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, about playing at home versus playing on the road. And he's like, that's because Heinz Field is a great venue, and the fans are great. It's not about, we don't have that big advantage. He's like, it's an advantage playing there. So hopefully he's right. So there we go.
All right. We got to get the scores.
Well, yeah, that's right. Because we do. We've been going over a little bit too much. But here, Rich, well, I am going to bring this up.
Oh, somebody did ask. Is Scho
Bro 2.0? He's
2.0.
2.0. Yeah.
Scho 2.0 not going to the game with me. I'm actually taking a friend of mine who is a Steeler fan. Actually, he had even after I decided I was going to take him, he actually was considering buying my tickets. And I was like, oh, I said, I was just going to take you as a Christmas present. And he was like, oh, he's like, I'm in. I'm like, so
there you go.
All right.
And then there's BF Bud who says, I'll be there with you, Big Bro, rooting for my beloved Steelers. He'll be in my seats. So BF Bud, please do them right. Specifically seat 17 is the one that's mine. So treat it right. You're around some really great fans. It's a really good place to have seats just because the people around you are great.
So I'm ready to shoot my score out there.
You're ready to shoot. So yeah, we're going to do scores. So we're going to have some time to really, where we don't have to rush through them as much. Remember, if you brought up a score already, guess what?
It's not going yet.
Oh no, not just that. You're going in timeout. You got 5 minutes until you can even say anything.
All right, here we go.
Rules. No scores until we say that's just fun. You know what I mean? Don't be offended by that.
Yeah, don't be offended by that.
It's just it's like the stupid Around the Horn show where they mute people for 30 seconds and stuff like that. I haven't watched that in years.
Or no soup for you.
Yeah.
So
no soup for you. So yeah, so we'll get your scores when we come back. But Rich is going to give his breakdown, give his scores. Then I will we'll put the word out there, and then you all can post yours.
All right. So I'm thinking home game Monday night, Steelers Browns. Browns are the Browns. Somehow we keep it interesting for week 17 and pull off a W against the Browns 21-17. 21-17. So there's your score, 21-17. So therefore they go, and then the Steelers roll into the final week. The Steelers, hey, you beat me to it. I already had it loaded up. Now it's in there like 17 times. Oh, they can get in there now.
It got doubled up. So yeah, the bottom line is I'm going to bring these scores up in just a second. But I'm pretty sure that there's only been one season under Mike Tomlin where the Steelers weren't still in contention going into the final game of the season. And they are in contention going into the 16th game. It's just, will they be for the 17th game? So here we go. You want to?
I'll click, you read.
Oh, you missed some. You didn't go back far enough. I'm going to beat you. I got to go back to where you put scores in, not where I did. Okay. And we'll get to that.
But it didn't skip down on me. I didn't realize it skipped.
Okay. All right. So we've got. I'm the one who's losing his voice. So
okay, then you click them, I'll read them.
There you go. I click them, you read them.
Steven Carestas says 2017 Steelers. Brian Brown, 15-10 Steelers. Sounds pretty good.
That's because that was the score of the last game.
Sure. George Tesson, 33-17 Steelers. He say the Steelers are really going to bust out the offense that we haven't seen for weeks.
That would be fantastic.
All right, BF Bud, 30-24 Steelers. Steelers Pittsburgh, 2013 Steelers. Hashtag Zach Baker.
I think that's supposed to be 3. Maybe they hit a shift. I don't know. Not sure.
Johnny Bravo. Thank you. Says 27-17 Steelers. George Rice, 27-13 Browns. I can't pick the Steelers the way they are playing right now. And you know what? I don't blame you there, George. I totally can get behind that.
Yeah, I do. I can as well. I was also looking up something because I'm going to bring you some interesting numbers here when we're done.
You're a cherry band, 51-0 Steelers.
Since they lost to them 51-0 and was that 89?
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah.
Kathy Ford, Steelers 24-20. Moneybags, 27-17 Steelers. Ben throws 3 TDs. Steel Dog 88, Steelers 27-20. Ben throws game-winning touchdown. Possible last game at home.
Now, here's the thing that's crazy. If Ben wins his game at home, then he's playing the next week to possibly have another game at home. So,
Yeah.
but if he loses this game, he's not going to get another chance.
Yep.
Outside of 2022.
Yep.
So,
all right. George OTJ, Steelers 22-17. Steeler check 46, Steelers 24, Browns 21. Demetrios, and Dave, you never say this, so I don't even know how to get. Hold on, Medzarius
I think you got
says
it.
24-20 Steelers. Richard Adamson says 28-18 Steelers. No one, I feel the dead and lifeless fun continues. 19-12 Browns. Javier Mori says 17-13 Steelers. Ben throws last touchdown at Hines to Claypool. Christopher 11, 13-20 Steelers. Play Renegade during every commercial break.
He said that earlier. I was going to bring that up
that
at the end where he said play at every commercial break. I'm like, I mean, if it works. Here we go. I was looking for the next one.
Thaddeus Kennedy, 42-17 Browns. Josh Parker, 24-21 Steelers. Dill Whittet, Steelers, 17-13. Kelvin. See, you always do it too. I know. Kelvin Colbert Sr., 27-17 Steelers. Ben won't allow them to lose. George Bedvis, 13-0 Brownies.
All right. I'm looking for more.
Keep coming.
You got to bring this up. Just say it. Ivor.
Ivor Mecton Fire Tomlin says tank the game so they re-sign Baker Mayfield.
Yeah. But remember, he for those of you, he says Fire Tomlin, but it's in the rotating caps and lowercase. That if you know what that means. Here's another one.
Joey Jr. 31-10 Steelers for Ben's last home game. Brian Blackstock 23-17 Steelers. Let's go. Faustino Flores 23-18 Steelers.
I got to bring this one up from Tribe.
Breaking update: the Chiefs just scored again. That's funny.
I don't know that we got Ivor's score before. I don't think.
No, he didn't give a score, but we'll get it in there now. He says 21-17 Steelers.
Okay, and there we got.
And then Fam HD says 21-13 Steelers. Baker 3 picks.
That'd be nice. I want Micah Fitzpatrick to haunt his dreams.
Frank Crooker says Steelers 17, Browns 24.
Yep.
The Cuda 70 says 30 Browns, 13 Steelers. The Browns hang it out. They have nothing to lose.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Neither do the Steelers at this point.
Yeah.
Got to come back after the timeout. Sorry about that, Gino. I shouldn't have been so hard.
Hey, good Gino. Good for
sticking around
down there and sticking around, getting in there. We get him in there. Gino says 20-19 Steelers.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's what he's saying. Here's what's interesting, and I'm going to go into this a little bit more on my Stat Geek Thursday morning, but I've got to give you at least a little bit of a preview. Okay, for everyone that's thinking that. The Browns, the Steelers are playing so bad, you got to run all over them. Remember, both the Ravens and the Browns, since November 21st, so since Thanksgiving, the only team they have beaten is each other. That's it.
Wow.
And the Browns have not scored more than 24 points in any game. They have not scored more than 24 points since November 14th. Okay. Their total 7, 13, 10, 24, 14, 22. That's, and the one was the 13 was a win. Okay. They haven't scored points like that since they played the Bengals and put 41 up on them because they just happened to have their number. You take that game out of there, then you're talking 10, 17, 14, all the way back to the middle of October. So it's not like the Browns are tearing it up offensively. But then again, it's not like the Steelers are doing anything that great defensively either. So do we have any more scores just to make sure? Here's Ron. I got Ron.
Yep. You get
I missed another one too, but I'll go back and get it.
I get it. So Ron Chess says Steelers 27-20. Mark Tobin said 13-10 Steelers.
Yeah. So yeah, that's something that I wanted to say here after we did the scores. If any more trickle in, we'll make sure we get them. That this is. It's funny because when they asked Coach Tomlin about if it's, Ben Roethlisberger's last game at Heinz Field and if that's going to affect things, he didn't do anything to quash the whole notion that it is, So they're not denying it, but they're kind of saying, he says, Ben's handled this fantastic all year. So here they go into it. Is it going to mean something or is it not? Every time I think that this team has something to play for, they kind of dud out on me. And every time that I think this team is done, they show up and win a game. I don't know. And this is kind of my closing thoughts before we get into your closing thoughts. That I said to myself, as long as the Steelers put themselves in a situation to where if they're playing well at the end of the season and roll into the postseason, you're going to make some noise. And if you were to tell me that in back-to-back weeks, the Steelers had to play the number 1 and the number 2 seed in the AFC, because that's what they did. And they won one of the games. Don't you think you'd probably be feeling pretty good about the team?
Probably.
But we're not, and I'm not saying that we should. Trust me, I'm not saying that we should. But if you just step back and look at it in that manner, you're like, wait a second, they played the number 1 seed, the number 2 seed in the AFC, and they beat one of them. That must mean that this team might have some fight in them and that they deserve to be up there. But it took 4 takeaways to beat the Titans at home, who was missing their big play receiver, who, as you saw this past week, the difference that he makes when he's around, almost lost my fantasy game to go to the final because I forgot to put him in time on Thursday night, but I digress. And then they came out and did what they did in Kansas City, where they were just completely outclassed, never in the game. It seemed like it was the cream of the crop, playing a team. It felt like they were playing a team that was fighting for the first overall pick with the effort that you got out of the Steelers in Kansas City.
Right.
And that's why you don't feel that way. If they turn it around and play well the last 2 games and do what they have to do and take care of business, and even, let's say they do the unthinkable and actually win a non-nail biter against these 2 teams. Do you feel better about this team? I'd feel better about it, but I also don't think that's going to happen because it just doesn't seem that that's what this team is.
Yeah. You ready for my final thoughts?
I'm ready for your thoughts. So my thing is sometimes you can't see the forest through the trees. That sometimes you're so looking at the individual stuff, when you look back at that, you're like, oh wow, depending on how the Tennessee Titans finished their season, you're like, the Steelers, that's a pretty good team that they beat there. That's another. We said the same thing about Buffalo early in the season. They had some teams, but then at the same time, you're like, the Vikings are kind of almost out of it by now, and they kind of couldn't do much there. So sometimes you just got to step back and take a look at it and realize, hey, you can have a bad game, but man, oh man, knowing that was the toughest one you had all season, to go in and do that, that was a rough one. So go ahead, Rich.
All right. So here are my final thoughts. They are going to be quick, short, and sweet. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Come Monday, I'm not going to be thinking about any playoff scenario or anything like that. I'm going to Heinz Field Monday night to watch the Steelers play the Browns, and I expect to see the Steelers win the game. Why? Because I want to be a perfect 4-0 in showing up to Heinz Field for games this year, and the Steelers are going to make sure that happens for me. They're going to do that, and then we're going to worry about all the playoff stuff that could or couldn't happen, whatever, the following week. But getting me to 4-0 at Heinz Field in person this year is going to happen. Can't wait.